Hello and welcome to another Focus Friday brought to you by Mapex and Majestic. My name is John Harville, and as always, it's just a big pleasure to be here and doing these. Um, Today, we're talking with Matt Verburg of Riot. No introduction needed for that brand in our community, and we're super happy to be talking to him in just a few seconds. Just want to make you aware of a lot of great things that are going on in the Mapex marching community. Dave Natal's Playing at Home uh, video series is still up and going. You'll find a new episode of those each Monday. Um, and even though we're all starting to get back out a little bit more, the stay at home, learn at home, play at home initiative is still going on. And as we've talked about, this is a great time to bring home things from Majestic marimbas to Mapex marching snares and tenors. So all that stuff is on our website. It's definitely worth a look now. And now's never been a better time to bring some of those instruments just on the field or on the indoor court into your own room. So check those out. And now, as I said, it's a real pleasure to have our next guest with us. He is the founder of Riot, and he's just an overall great dude. You'll find that out as we talk. Matt, thanks for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Nah, man, we're happy to have you here. This is going to be quite a fun time. We've always, we see you and your stuff out there all over the place. So it's going to be a good dive into how you get around and what you do out there and what this year and what next year will look like. So,
gosh, yeah. If you have the answers, let me know.
I'm passing all those along at the right price. What have you been doing in the kind of the isolation time, and now that we're starting to come out of it a little bit?
On the personal side of things, I've recently moved. You're looking at an empty house. We put a little couch and a picture on the wall specifically for this moment. Otherwise, you'd be looking at bare walls and bare floors. Moved to Mississippi, which is an experience with my wife, and that's very exciting. On the business side of things, we have been trying to find ways to pivot, adapt, make sure that some of the sales that we may be missing out on at events are transitioned online. That's much easier said than done. And also working on ways to give back, and knowing that we aren't, and whether our business or your business are the only ones kind of struggling through the new world. And there's a lot of ensembles and friends who are struggling, and we're affected by the shutdowns and the cancellations and the circuits and the state championships and all these sort of things that can no longer happen. We want to do what we can to make sure that not only we survive, but the activity stays as strong as possible for our next opportunity.
Right. That's one of the things that when we have talked in the past is that it's a brand that is not extremely self-centered, and that it is a community, and you reach out to our marching community, music community, and every time I've talked to you, you generally care about all of that. And just kind of, I always say, rising waters raise all ships, and that's kind of that's something that I've always been super impressed over the past couple of years where we've gotten to work together. So yeah.
So we're trying to find those ways, those opportunities. I would say big or small, but at this point it's small, but as big as we can do. Knowing that most of our traction comes at events, at shows. So yeah, I mean, and here, speaking now to the folks who might be watching and who are looking for ways to fill their brain and ways to bridge the gap between what was left off and how we can move forward in a kind of an uncertain world. We're all in that sort of together. And I hope that we're a positive influence to some of those folks.
I think you guys sure are. And it's quite the boat that we're all going to be in. So, well, let's jump in, and let's just figure out. Can you tell us briefly how you got into the marching community, from which now you serve and represent?
Traditional story. My older sister joined our high school drum line. I was a middle school snare drum guy. Marched high school snare drum for a bunch of years. Marched at the University of Central Florida, and at Southwind Drum and Bugle Corps from '99 to '03. I didn't march '01, but marched 4 years of snare drum at Southwind. And then taught there for a few years, as well as then taught the UCF drumline for 4 or 5 years. And from there, taught a lot of high school drumlines here in the Orlando area. I guess not here. I did just move. But there in the Orlando area.
Force of habit, huh?
I know, that's the first time I've kind of had to say that. And from there, built an independent drumline. We are, and then ended up here, I mean, with Lot Riot, but kind of touched almost every level of the activity, from, indoor drum lines A up to world, college, high school, you name it.
Right. So well-rounded, from spectator to participant to staff. And, and those Southwind years, those are the yellow years, right?
That's right. We were yellow from '99 to '07. I was involved with 6 of those 8 years, back when we were world class. And it looks like, I mean, as an alumni of the organization, on track, great now to move from open class to whatever may happen in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Southwind is very happy to see them.
I mean,
back
how
on
many
the rise.
influential people came out of that organization, whether it was members like Joe Hobbs and Martin Harrison at Redline, and a bunch of really good guys, and the instructors there, second to none, with Paul Weber and Doug Bush and Cliff Walker and the Fitzgibbon brothers and Patricia Eastloss, and it could go on.
All those
Osmore and Gwaltney, and come on,
top-notch folks right there. Yeah, all of them.
Yeah.
So when you leave, so you get to that age, you age out, and then you're teaching. I do want to talk about the Timber Creek stuff before we get to the Lot Ride, if we may, because those shows and what y'all did back then were so it was just, first of all, we were talking about it the other day. Some of the shows are just almost prophetic right now, of like, what's going on right now. So can you tell us just a little bit about that story, because the story is incredible, and then I'll encourage everybody to kind of go back and check these out.
Yeah. Well, before I say anything, let me throw a major credit to my co-director and co-designer at Timber Creek Independent, Cliff Walker, who was the main guy and brought me in as a staff member. And then by the end, we were creating these shows together. So I don't want to pretend that I was, the sole voice in the room. But we started as Timber Creek High School. This is the Timber Creek High School in Orlando. I know there are actually, as far as I'm aware, 3 Timber Creek high schools, and all of them have been involved in the marching activity, indoor or good marching bands at some point, one in Texas, one in New Jersey. This is the one in Orlando. And we started, just as the local high school drumline. We, on the high school level, had done pretty well, and decided to go independent. In our first year as an independent ensemble, we came out independent A. We didn't really know any better. I never marched indoor. I was just a little, I had aged out just before it really exploded. And Cliff had never marched, and we had this indoor drum line. We wanted to go independent. We came out independent A. And then in Orlando, the regional was promoted to independent open. In Nashville, we were promoted to independent world. And then in Dayton, we made world finals, all in one season, which has never been done before. And as I tell folks, I do not recommend that to absolutely anyone. I guess it is a point of pride, but it's also, we didn't have the funds, the infrastructure, the parents, to really maintain that. And then, yeah, we got to spend 4 years, 3 additional years in world class, where I think you could debate whether we were fearless creatively or completely naive. And maybe those two things go together. Maybe they go hand in hand.
I think they run on the same track sometimes. You
Right.
know, you're in unventured territory, and it's necessity breeds it.
Right. Our show in 2000, I believe it was 8, was the videotape show where we talked about, surveillance, and it was a Radiohead show. We had a live singer. It was, I feel like it was ahead of its time. Some of the influences that we've seen, and even immediately a year or two afterwards, having some of the electronics rules by the rules committee at WGI were changed. Of course, now we were, jealous that people can do now what we were sort of wishing we could do at the time with video. And that was fun. And then the very next year, that's kind of, by the way, that videotape show has kind of become a cult favorite. I know that we never placed very high in our 4 years in world class. We were 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th. We were the only 16th place finalist group our last year out, because there was a tie. So there were 16 finalist groups. We hold the only 16th finalist place in WGI history also. We're just, breaking records.
A lot of world records going on here. Yeah.
The very next year did a show about censorship. And it was it wasn't really intended to be a really deep academic study. But yes, you can see now how, oh gosh, that's Breaker. That's Breaker, the dog.
I definitely think everybody's going to notice the giant dog that just went in, but that's awesome.
That's Breaker. She's a sweetheart.
Yep, and she's getting her camera time.
Whoever's watching this, just know that Breaker wants to play with you, and Breaker wants to lick you and hang out with you. There she is. What a good girl.
Good girl.
Yeah. So the videotape show, surveillance, censored, kind of using words of, Frank Zappa and the Beastie Boys and some of these old musical influences that were not just musical but social. And then our final year, the Color and Heart with the Sufjan Stevens show, artistically beautiful, to be honest, not quite conceptually realized, but I can shoulder that. But yeah, TCI, Timber Creek. Our last year, our name was the Creek. Don't change the name. I recommend that as a piece of advice. But yeah, it was a blast. It was a really creative, fun, intense couple of years.
Yeah, they still stick out in my mind. I was telling you that, I've been to every WGI since the, and that I remember it. And Chris Hankis was telling us a little bit about the censorship show, right, and how you guys even would censor the logos of the drums.
That was tricky. And that was tricky, telling Chris about that, because was that our first year using Mapex. I know that we were the first Mapex finalist in world class, independent world. And we told, it was a month after we got the drums, and we're like, Chris, we, in full creative on brand, show style, we are going to cross out all the Mapex logos on our big bass drum, and on the bass drums themselves, the marching bass drums and the snare drums. We would, censor out all the names of the sponsors and all of the endorsers and all of the products that we were using. Everything was edited out. You could see it. There's a statistic that says that, if you redact something, right, it draws interest. If you cross out a word, people are going to read it 2 or 3 or 4 times. But to the drum company, I don't know how that might have sounded.
Could have been a funny sell, funny phone call. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for all this, but
right. Appreciate it. We're crossing it out.
But it worked, and it worked. Yeah. And as I saw the videos, it was only on one side. There was one side, the bass drummers had everything full on, and then it turned, and it was even they were in the heads were a different color and it was blocked out, and it was
Yeah.
just really, it really was a part of the show. And you know, and I just thought that's a really good moment. And
Yeah. And I credit a lot of that to the marriage of, you know, that visual to the music. I was the visual designer of the costumes, the floor, the drill. Well, with some help on the drill, especially that censored show, Andy Schwartz, if you're watching, and Cliff with his music. And it was just, gosh, we worked well together. That was a good time.
yeah. And tell me another thing. There was a rumor that someone actually had a contact to Radiohead, and if you could have had him come in, that you would have taken the penalty or the disqualification and actually have Tom York.
Well, that's definitely a conversation that happened.
Yeah.
If we could get the man to walk in the door, why? How many people get disqualified finals night? It would have been the most legendary performance of all time. The contact to Radiohead, as far as I know, did not exist. We made a couple of phone calls and emails to friends in the music industry, not so much to say, hey, Tom York, can you come to Dayton, Ohio in the middle of April? Because that's where you want to be, right? That's drop everything, Tom.
It's
drop
a hot
everything. So no, we didn't. Well, we reached out to offer them, you know, hey, we're doing this. Check this out. Never really heard anything back. But of course, I mean, gosh, if he said, hey, that's great, can I come? Yeah, heck yeah, dude. You're in.
That would have been legendary. And
Yeah.
I would have been 100% supportive of disqualified live.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. So man, so now, you know, you marched and you've taught, and so you're in this passion and activity. How
Right.
does it turn into something that you can take now and you've developed into business? Can you tell us a little bit about how it morphed from?
Definitely. Yeah, we while I was teaching TCI, I was in grad school. Kind of debated in college to whether or not to get the music degree. Decided pretty early that I was not talented and or musically disciplined enough to make that happen. UCF is a great percussion program. All my best buds were in it. But I decided on a business degree. And then when I went to grad school is when I was doing TCI and had these sort of, you know, visions, or at least, you know, internal questions about how do I, as not a world-class musician, stay in this activity, you know, examining my priorities and examining my favorite parts about the activity, about why I was involved in the activity. I was never a gear guy. I was never a writing beats guy. I loved writing drill. I loved, you know, designing costumes and uniforms and floors. But there's not too much of I wanted to stick around permanently in a way that affected not just my 40 members, but how do we affect the activity as a whole? And there are thousands of performers out there. So in grad school, started thinking those things. I had previously designed some gear for Southwind Drum and Bugle Corps when I was teaching there, designed some shirts. And then with TCI, designed t-shirts and the merchandise and just the branding and that sort of stuff. And it's when I kind of had a light bulb of watching the students at TCI and at UCF wear their surfer gear and their skater gear. Meanwhile, the band shirts and the iron-on drumline gear that you can get at some of the big shows. Our students, who are the smartest, most loyal, most social, the funniest, coolest, best, most dedicated people on the planet, our drumline members, would take off their band gear and put on their surf and skate wear after rehearsals or after shows. And those guys didn't, I mean, maybe a couple of them surfed and skated, but everybody was wearing it. And that was a pretty big light bulb for me, in that it wasn't so much the business idea. I didn't see dollar signs, because if anyone, really knows what's going on, there are no dollar signs. But I saw the passion of the performers not being expressed, not being represented culturally. And after doing research and looking to see what was out there, I didn't find what I felt was needed. And so I decided to just go ahead and do it.
I love that. I love that explanation that it's not just uh, it's a need that was being met, not trying to exploit something. And in everything that I've seen, like, if there's a pulse of this activity and these kids and their passion, like you guys are
Mm-hmm.
right on it. So how did how do you get in so well and just create a brand that like speaks to so many of the kids in this activity?
That's difficult to put a finger on. You know, I think you said it indirectly, is that we aren't super interested in selling T-shirts, even though that's what we do. You know, we feel like it's, if not us that brings attention to the activity, then who? If not us who present something that fits well, looks good, and is well designed and represents these performers, then who's going to do it? I feel like it's difficult to feel the pulse of anything, whether that's some of the, at the time, having just done a whole lot of research, kind of comparing and contrasting what was happening in the merchandising world, what was happening in the souvenir world versus what was happening in the actual now. Actually, it was then. What was actually happening then when it comes to what people are wearing, what people are identifying with, and the rise of social media. I absolutely applaud the merchandisers and souvenir sellers, whether that's drum corps or indoor drumline or the bands. I spent a summer on tour doing the souvenir life. I think it was in 2014. I was on tour with the cadets for about a month, learning the insides and outsides of how it all comes together. But I think the end goal of those merchandisers are, and rightfully so, they're fundraising for the Corps. You got to put gas in the bus to get to the next place. One way you do that is to sell some T-shirts to fans and alumni, and it's all great. But there was an overarching culture. There's an overarching feeling and community to where that Cavaliers fan can wear the Cavaliers, the Blue Devils fan can wear the Blue Devils, the Rhythm X fan can wear the Rhythm X. But what do we all wear? What do we all share? And that's where I found that I would always, see somebody at the mall wearing a drum corps shirt, and I would say, "Hey, you march so and so," and I always felt so good. Or when I would wear, a Southland shirt or a TCI shirt, and someone would say, "Hey, I know what you're doing. I know that." That feels good. We all have these shared sacrifices. We all have these shared stories. We don't need to sit around a campfire for 2 hours and talk about old drum corps stories. When you see somebody wearing a Lot Riot shirt, about some shared experiences. That your jargon makes sense, right? That fandom crosses all of these boundaries. And that's what I felt. That's the mission of Lot Riot. And I feel like that's my mission. I want to make sure that folks are represented. The conversations can happen. We are all members of this community together. And, those shared sacrifices, those shared stories. You could walk up to somebody in a Lot Riot shirt and ask if you sit in the front or the back of the bus. And that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to anyone else. But that's sort of the vibe that we're going for. I hope, I take that as a compliment that we are on the pulse of things. We can't just make the same shirts that we made or design the same designs that we made 5 or 6 years ago. That wouldn't be true. So appreciate it.
Sure. No, absolutely. It's a great, explanation of how, it's really a visualization and a lifestyle, and you're catering to that, and you're connecting people all over, this, how we all speak that
it's
weird
definitely
language.
a lifestyle.
How we all speak that weird language, or we all know, oh
right,
my gosh,
right.
we know here comes everydays, or all that stuff.
Right, exactly.
What's the drum corps food like, or something like that, and how you
Right.
know, you kind of try to embody that. So what goes into a little bit of the research into some of the designs and some of those things? How can you give a little bit of you know, how the sausage is made behind the
Oh,
scene?
yeah. It's so not glamorous, or flamorous. It's not flamorous at all. Oh, sorry, this is really stupid. Um,
Dad joke, sure,
yeah.
right on it.
Uh, I'm a sketcher. I have dumb ideas and I draw them. I pay attention to what is kind of happening in the world. I take a lot of influences from vintage designs. I'm obsessed with everything old. Um, Whether that's, I have a small collection of vintage drum corps T-shirts, and I also try to marry that just a little bit with just plain old good graphics and some styles and fits that um, are, you know, I don't want to say on trend, because I don't think the majority of the folks in our niche market are necessarily super fashion trend forward. I don't think that's a space that we should be in. Um, but yeah, I sketch things. I have friends that are graphic designers, at least when we were starting the company, that I would send these sketches to. Here's a fun, goofy idea. Run with it, see what happens. And a lot of those ideas never see the light of day, which is for the best. How many mock-ups are made that are never produced is in the hundreds. It's got to be. Yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, but yeah, I'm an art fan. When I was in college, I was reading art magazines and graphic design magazines, wishing desperately that I had those skills. So I've kind of had to marry the, you know, the amateur sketch that I make to a refined, printable sort of graphic that makes sense and that, you know, stays true to our, you know, the folks that are going to wear it.
Right.
I mean, if I just made stuff that I liked, we'd be out of business.
Sure, sure. It is important to have a couple other people and filters involved
Right.
that you can run ideas from, because you know, we've all had that idea or been on, you know, a drum staff, and I can recall countless times of saying, I got this idea, and I give it to them, and I think it's it's gonna take over the world, and they're just like,
Right.
no, that's
Right.
kind of
Right.
dumb. I was like,
Right.
oh, and kudos to the courage to just be brutally honest sometimes.
Well, and if there's any dumb ideas, I've forced a couple dumb ideas through. I can take that. There's been some stinkers. That's all.
Don't need to roll with it. Don't need to say them out loud.
Yeah.
All right. Well, speaking about how fast you got work and that, Woody, your shirt in response to terrible what happened with WGI
Sure.
and whatnot, but we got to be able to kind of smile and laugh and get through this. And so when I
Yeah.
saw the Undisputed Champs shirt,
Yeah.
kudos, man.
Oh, thanks.
That was just so funny. Like, you know, that's something that's going on in our activity. We're all feeling it.
Yeah.
And sure enough, you guys were there to kind of like.
I want to give credit on that one to Rob and Jake, who are my two closest. They're my super underpaid volunteer staffers. Jake is part-time. Gosh, we kicked around a bunch of ideas and they just knew that that was a hit. I was a little nervous in a way that would feel opportunist, but if our mission is to create some good memories and to create some really good feelings to our performers, we definitely wanted to do that. I mean, you really are. I mean, nobody beat you in Dayton this year, you know, so you never know if you could have taken it home, or if you knew you weren't going to take it home, you could still taste a little bit of that glory. You know what I mean?
The first, I think the first post I saw was from Mike Davis up at Freedom. He said, I'll be the first to say it. We were going to bring it home this year. So,
right.
So that's awesome. you've talked about, Lot Riot is really a service, and it's, serving our community, and our community has gone through a temporary, we're in a little bit of a lull right now,
Yeah.
and we're just really hoping for fall marching band. I think we're all
Hmm.
kind of clamoring at the bit to hear the high school drumline
Right.
down the street play Eight on a Hand.
Right.
How has it been in how's it planning going from maybe some of the event focused things to more web focused?
Well, we're in the same boat, hoping that this fall we, can attend some shows, because it's so difficult to transmit our love and our handshakes and our hugs and hopefully the positive experience that we provide at shows. That's maybe one of the best. I think that's the best thing we do. I'll say that. I think that's one of the best things we do. I think that that's what we're built for. We are not web designing, robot e-commerce, shirt packing and shipping dudes. Like, that's not in our blood. We have to do that to pay some bills, but gosh, would we much rather be at shows? Because I just feel like we've identified that early in our company's culture, that that's where we shine. That's where we want to really present ourselves and create a brand experience. So now focusing on e-commerce is tough. Anyone out there who's run an e-commerce store and they are hearing these numbers that are just astronomical, it's not for a local, I'll call us a mom and pop, even though I'm neither of those things. It's still just, a super small team of drummers across the country. Rob's in Texas and Jake's in Orlando still, and I'm here in Mississippi now. Transitioning to the online thing has been tough. We were hit very hard with the closings. I by no means want to, there are folks who are sick and there are people who are out of business. So I don't want to step on that at all, but we are still kind of on the verge of seeing if we're going to be around, or at least how do we adapt, right? How do we pivot our way to a return to profitability? And with a shirt like Undisputed, that helped a lot. We wouldn't have done certain products. So it's a product shift. It's a communication strategy shift. Like we've always kind of had the message of we are all in this together. But those sort of really gritty moments of, sleeping on a gym floor, or, staying up super late on a rehearsal weekend for WGI, those used to be the gritty moments that we could talk about, and that would identify and kind of bond us together. And now it's totally different. Now it's much bigger, right? Now it's our season didn't conclude. Now it's what we built up so hard for, we don't get to, reap the rewards. There's no benefit. And one of our recent emails, I kind of, described it as a song that doesn't resolve. You want to just run to the piano and just play that last note to sum it all up and to let your brain move forward and move on. But we've been stuck here with this big old suspension, and there's no way to kind of fill in the gap of, being congratulated for, or, one last send-off show. There's so much unresolved, even like friendships, if we're getting deep into it, not having seen the person that you were supposed to spend the next 2 months, I guess 1 month of your life with, rehearsing with, and bonding with. And those are real. I mean, those relationships, those experiences, that's what builds us as performers. That's what builds us as humans. There's so few people that have the opportunity to do marching band or drumline or drum corps as a profession. And it's those moments that are the payoff for the hard work and the sweat and the tears. And we were denied those this year. As performers, now that's the grit. Those are the shared experiences. So the communication is on a much deeper level. And I think that's important for us and for other whether it's a company or a circuit or an ensemble or some of the larger players in the game, even just, influencers and, mini drum corps celebrities who now have all shared this sort of experience of losing that. I guess you're not losing an age out, but losing that summer under your belt. We've experienced as an activity a deepening of emotions and a true experience where our future stories are going to be built. There's a real loss to those experiences and to the summer and the spring and all these different moments that may have happened, but we can't treat it as a negative because it did happen. And so let's embrace it in a way. And how do we commiserate in that together and positively move forward?
Yeah. Man, I hope that everybody can just it's just a real transparent heart that you have for the activity. It's just way beyond any shirts or anything like that. Right. It's so deep. And I'm glad that people are able to see and hear that, because I know it's true, but just everybody, it's true hurt. And you're right. So you're so right on, you guys are so great at events. Any Lot Riot booth always has, it's an event outside of the event. There's always, the kids are just hanging out and they're telling the stories and they're just hanging out and they're wearing the stuff, but it's just such a cool environment to be around. And you're right, fun. We're gonna miss it.
I'm glad, of course, that the AJets get an extra year. I my heart goes out to those high school seniors that might not get to, and it's not even Dayton. We're talking about Dayton as if everyone goes there. No, there are thousands of groups that didn't get to go to their state championships, that didn't get that send-off show. How can we be there? In my case, as a human, and in the business's case, as a company, how can we be there for them? And it's difficult sometimes because we're known as the T-shirt guys, and that's perfectly fine. I'm constantly looking for ways to explain this and really hopefully have a heart for these performers and these parents and these band directors and these staff members and these alumni who are just kind of hanging on every note. They're hanging on every drill set and every show when it comes close to them. And it stinks. And I hope, again, it's not life or death, but it's emotional, it's real, it's relational. And those things are very important for mental health and I guess physical health when it comes to, marching over the summer. It's definitely unfortunate.
Right. It's not life or death, but it's such a better life. It's such a happier life, when all these performers can go out, whether it's up in their local, their local circuits, like you said, or Dayton, or, on the road during the summer. It's always such a great place to go and just to see the people you marched with and, and then, you help connect all those things. What could, we all talked about it. It's what could bands around the country do? What could, Lot Riot do for them in terms of some of those things of fundraising? Because money is, it's going to be hard to get some of those things maybe from their local counties or their government. So what can Lot Riot do for bands out there all over the country coming this fall?
Well, currently right now this summer with some indoor groups and some drum corps, we're doing fundraising sales. You're familiar with, the Spirit Night where you go with your kid to the local pizza place, they cut you a check at the end of the night. We're kind of doing something similar to that. They're called Lot Nights, and we're partnering with different ensembles that will get a 20% net profit kickback. 20%. That's not right at all. I don't remember the perfect numbers. It's all available on lotriot.com. So we're doing sales like that. If you are interested in expanding your merchandising, with us or with a print shop, we would be happy to help you out. We have some good data in terms of what sells, what doesn't sell, what's kind of old fashioned, what's happening now. If you are interested in, upping your merchandising game, I think we can assist you, whether it's from a data standpoint or from an actual production. If it's hats, shirts, beanies, sweaters, accessories, and you're looking for someone to work with who knows the activity and knows what's happening in terms of the youth out there, what they're going to kind of spend some money on, we hopefully would be a good voice for you in that way. That might help. This fall, it's funny because it's coming up. I mean, it's right around the corner, but it seems so far away. But as things open, as band schedules start to fall into place, as soon as the big organizations in the band world announce their shows and that things are going to be open, and you want to run some fundraiser option ideas through us, we would love to help. My email is matt@lotriot.com. And that goes, God, we're talking about fundraising, but if somebody out there just kind of wants to hang, if there's a young business person who kind of wants to kick around some ideas, if there's a marcher who's still feeling pretty beat up about not being able to do their summer, send me an email. Happy to hang, happy to talk, matt@lotriot.com. And even it doesn't have to be, we don't have to change the world. If one person wants to hang on email, happy to do it.
That's so awesome. I think it just seems so, just in conversation, but the idea for my 14-year-old stepson is starting marching band this year.
Yeah, cool.
And so I'm going to be one of those parents, and it's going to be hard for me to hear something, and not want to go,
right.
quote unquote, fix it. But I'm going to be the guy at the football games, my wife and I. But just the idea to have access to experts that really know the data, that offer is huge. It's bigger than I think we can put right into words when can grow a program and help a program along this year. So that is insane.
I think there's a lot of educational data out there, and there's a lot of great educational data. And so if we can be a voice for some of the marketing and merchandising data and improving the return on some of your investments, we would love to help.
That is working with somebody that is knowing it that much and that deep I didn't know we were going to offer that. That's awesome.
Did I? We don't have anything formal worked up. This was not a pitch. We didn't talk about this.
Yeah. Well, like I said, man, you're just always there, and you've done it. You've been there. It's been part of your life, and you're continuing. You just care. You probably care too much. So just roll with it at this point.
Yeah.
All right. Well, man, I like to end these on sort of a fun note. And
sure.
So I wanted to see if there was, what's another, if you didn't do this activity, but you could brand and merchandise and support any other activity other than the ones that we love. Yeah. I wonder what would that be?
That is a great question. I think there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of niche markets out there that need some rebranding, that need some you caught me off guard. My brain, and I don't know why, because I like to do that
at least at the end. I always like to throw it off at least at the end.
Because I'm not a bowler.
Okay.
But if you go back in time 10 years and you look at the marching band sort of world and what folks are wearing and what sort of merchandise is out there, I would have 10 years ago, and that's kind of where my brain was at 10 years ago, was like, hey, this is right for a change. And so I think while I'm not attached to the bowling activity, I think they're right for a change. Right? Let's go get bowling.
it could use a
Let's
little
go to
bit
the
of
blank.
a little upgrade.
Right. I mean, maybe there's a function to those like button up short sleeve shirts with like color side panels and like stitching on the back. Maybe there's a point. Email me, matt@lotriot.com, if you want to like beat me up about, the style choices of the bowling world.
I don't know why that is. Why, some people are just stooped in tradition and that's
Right.
what we wear. And, who in the world's going to be? Maybe you just need to get a hold of one quality bowler
Yeah.
that
Ooh.
comes out
Ooh, yeah.
making lot rag gear and
Let's do it.
takes the world by storm.
Lane Riot.
Lane,
Lane
see,
Riot, we're in.
see,
Yeah.
it's quick. It's quick.
Coming.
Matt's so quick, man. Matt, thanks so much for stopping in. I really appreciate you taking the time with us down there. Congratulations on your move.
Yeah, thank you.
You got some more boxes to unpack,
Oh,
probably.
gosh.
A dog that needs attention over there. So I know that you're busy. I can't wait for things to kind of get back to normal where we can be at those shows again. And, you were even here at our warehouse last year.
I was.
Yeah, I can't believe I almost forgot. Can you tell a little bit about the drum wrap and the green edition?
Yeah.
You guys did. This is, oh my goodness.
Oh, so we back, I guess it was a couple years ago, talking to Chris Hankus, and with the custom wrapping that was happening at the facility in Nashville, and we acquired. I'm sure Chris thought we were crazy that we filled up boxes of all of the remnant scraps of all the drum sparkles. So all the nice black sparkle, red sparkle, pearl finishes that were coming off of the work tables in the actual Mapex facility there in Nashville. We got a few boxes of those and we flattened them out and we cut them up and we cut all the corners, and with seriously handmade, we made some notebooks. They're like, oh gosh, this is not
I almost forgot it.
This is not a setup. This is not a setup, but this is my notebook. This is a red sparkle notebook.
Nice.
It's a nice little stamp. This is a graph paper notebook. And these are all from remnants and or scraps and or extras from the Mapex facility. So thanks to you guys, we are upcycling, recycling some unused scraps and making something out of them. It's a lot of fun.
It's so cool. So what I want to say out there is if you're in the market for new drums and you want to get some color samples, go ahead and make that sample very productive. Go over to Lot Riot.
Yeah.
Get it as a notebook
sure.
And make it, something that you can take home with you.
I think we have 6 or 7 colors available, but not top secret. We have like, we're going to come out every season with 3 or 4 new colors, and we're good for a year or 2 or 3. We have a lot of scraps, so that's great.
Great stuff, man. And of course, we'll have all of your information linked up here shortly after we finish up here. Matt, thanks so much, man.
No problem. Thank you.
Man, you just got the biggest heart for this activity in this community. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for joining us for another Focus Friday. Join us next week when our guest is Chris Romanowski. We're going to talk a little bit about being a DCI judge and working with the Atlanta Corvettes, DCA Corps. All right, so it should be a lot of fun. Chris is a great guy. And like I said, let's all have a good time. Let's come out of this better people and better players.